Imagine being able to go back in time and unsend that text, or change the course of your own life, or, on a more grand scale, turn back time so much so that you were able to change the course of history as we know it. It's definitely a fascinating idea, but is it really possible? Well, let's take a look at some theories that suggest it might actually be closer than we think. Cosmic strings are theoretical one-dimensional threads that could exist in the fabric of space-time. Think of them as incredibly thin, incredibly long defects that might stretch across the universe. If these cosmic strings are real and they come close enough together, their powerful gravitational fields could potentially create a kind of warp in space-time. This warp might be just the right kind of distortion needed to build a time machine. In essence, if cosmic strings exist and their gravitational effects can be harnessed, they could theoretically allow us to bend or even twist time, opening up the possibility of traveling to different moments in history. It is definitely a mind-bending idea that combines the mysteries of space with the allure of time travel. What more could you want in a time travel theory? It's got it all. Tachyons are theoretical particles that, if they exist, would have a remarkable property. They travel faster than the speed of light. In the world of physics, this is a huge deal because, according to some theories, moving faster than light could open the door to time travel. If tachyons are real and can indeed zoom through space at these incredible speeds, they might allow us to not only travel forward into the future, but also move backward in time. This is because, in some speculative theories, exceeding the speed of light could let you slip through time's usual flow, letting you revisit or even alter past events. So, they could be the key to unlocking the possibility of time travel, though they remain firmly in the realm of theory and speculation for now. Next, we are talking about the grandfather paradox. It is a classic puzzle in time travel discussions. So, picture this. Someone travels back in time and stops their grandfather from meeting their grandmother. If this happens, it means the time traveler's parents would never have been born, and by extension, the time traveler themselves wouldn't exist. This creates a logical loop, because if the time traveler was never born, then they could never go back in time to make that change in the first place. Essentially, it shows how messing with past events could lead to impossible contradictions and problems, making us question whether changing history is even feasible without causing major headaches for the timeline. And this brings us perfectly into our next theory, the many worlds interpretation. This theory, tied to quantum mechanics, proposes that every possible outcome of a quantum event actually happens, each in its own separate universe. Imagine it like this. Every decision or event that could go one way or another creates a new parallel universe where that specific outcome occurs. When it comes to time travel, this idea suggests that if you were to travel back in time, you wouldn't necessarily change the history of your own universe. Instead, you would enter a new alternate timeline where things play out differently. So rather than rewriting your own past, you'd be stepping into a parallel universe where history just took a different path, making it a fascinating way to think about how time travel might work without creating paradoxes. Richard Feynman, a renowned physicist, introduced an imaginative concept known as the checkerboard model to help us grasp how particles might interact with time. In this model, time is visualized as a two-dimensional checkerboard where particles move across the squares in various directions. Picture it like a chessboard where particles can travel forward, backward, or even sideways, creating a dynamic and flexible view of how they might experience time. This checkerboard framework offers a way to understand how particles might move through time in ways that could be similar to time travel, providing a fresh perspective on how the fabric of space-time might actually work. Feynman's model isn't just a theoretical curiosity, it actually helps scientists think about the possibility possibilities of particles moving in unconventional ways and exploring the quirks of time.
Our journey through time continues with a mysterious man simply known as Edward. In 2018, a man calling himself Edward came out claiming to be a time traveler from the year 5000. He said he'd been part of a top secret government time travel mission in 2004, where he traveled to the year 5000. He gave an interview where he shared a photo of what he said was Los Angeles in the future, and according to him, the city will be submerged underwater due to massive flooding caused by climate change. To substantiate his claim, Edward provided a photograph which he said depicted the future state of LA. In the photo, he described seeing skyscrapers and other buildings submerged in water, with only the tops visible above the waterline. He also stated that in the future, the effects of global warming will cause sea levels to rise significantly, leading to widespread flooding in coastal cities around the world, including Los Angeles, and that the inhabitants of these cities will have to adapt to new living conditions, with the remaining population living on the water's surface. Next, we have the Greek military time travelers. In 2017, an anonymous man claimed that after serving in the Greek military for 6 years, he was invited in 2013 to participate in a top secret time travel project. According to his account, this project saw him travel to the year 3207, a journey that lasted 2 days. From his perspective, about a month after his story came out, another anonymous man from Greece also said he was a student when in 2008 he was reportedly approached by a professor who offered him the chance to be part of a time travel experiment. He accepted and claimed to have been sent to the year 10,000. The purpose of this experiment was said to be related to gaining knowledge about a future war between humans and artificial intelligence. Again, I think they sent him way too far into the future if it's a war between humans and artificial intelligence. 10,000? That's pretty far up there. Maybe there's something wrong with the machine. And also, I mean, according to some other time travelers we've discussed already, that's a war we won't be winning. They could have just asked them, saved the whole trip. Next up, we have Athos Salome, who's now being referred to as the modern-day Nostradamus. He's made all these predictions about the future, a lot of them very similar to the type of stuff we've heard of before when it comes to end-of-the-world conspiracies, alien contact coming soon, AI reaching a new level of awareness and taking over, more deadly natural disasters, a big war, soon we'll be able to communicate with the dead through artificial intelligence technology, you know, all your standard stuff. But what I find really genuinely interesting and kind of creepy about this whole thing is that I'm honestly not even sure if this Athos Salome guy is a real person. I've seen plenty of pictures of him, and I've read news articles quoting things he's apparently said. I've seen other people in videos quoting things he said. I'm one of them. We have a whole video on this guy on the channel. Check it out after this. But I haven't seen footage of him actually moving his mouth and talking on video. I've seen like one, but it's like a narrator over top of it, and it's like low quality. It could be AI generated. And I mean, just look at him. Doesn't he look like he could be an AI generated image to you? I mean, all these news articles say he makes TikTok videos, but I can't find them. So what the hell is actually going on here? Who is Athos Salome? Is there a real person behind all these predictions, or is this some kind of artificially created thing? And if so, who created it? Next up, we have a man who claimed to have traveled through time with Barack Obama, Andrew Basiago. Basiago claimed he was part of Project Pegasus, a secret US government initiative that he says took place during the 60s and 70s. This project focused on developing technology for teleportation and time travel. He said he was chosen as a participant when he was just a young tyke because of his father's connection to the project. The technologies he mentioned included the chronovisor and teleporters. A chronovisor is said to be a device that allows users to view events from the past and future, while teleporters are said to enable physical travel across time and space instantaneously. But he didn't just go forwards in time, no, he traveled back to 1863, where he witnessed the Gettysburg Address delivered by President Abe Lincoln himself. Basiago was very public with his claims. At one point, he even ran for president, with part of his platform promising to reveal the secrets of time travel and teleportation technology. I mean, how did he not win the presidency? Doesn't everyone want to know all of these secrets? It was a cheap tactic, but I guess in the end, it didn't work anyway. Finally, we have the one and only John Titor. This is probably the most well-known time-traveling claim in the history of the internet. Now, of course, the whole thing is very far-fetched, but what is interesting about these posts are how detailed they are. Whoever this John Titor really is or was, quite the imagination. Or he's a real time traveler, obviously. So it all began in November of 2000 when someone started posting on online forums claiming to be an American military time traveler from the year 2036. They'd later start using the name John Titor in future posts, and according to Titor, he was sent back to 1975 originally to retrieve an IBM 5100 computer in order to read older programming languages in the future. He claims this machine was needed to debug legacy computer programs that existed in his time. And on his way back to 2036, Titor claimed he made a stopover in the year 2000 for personal reasons, and during this time is when he decided to interact with people on internet message boards. He gave detailed explanations about how his time machine and how time travel worked in general. He included diagrams and descriptions of its operation based on theoretical physics concepts. Till this day, it's still a complete mystery as to who this guy was. Was it just some dude having some fun? Was it a social experiment of some kind? We'll probably never know. What I do know though is that his whole story was a bit more interesting than just like, oh, aliens invade in the future. Going back from an old IBM computer? I don't know. Creative. A woman in a video from 1938 looks like she's talking on a cell phone. Did a man travel back to 1995 to catch a Mike Tyson fight? And in Mongolia, a 1500-year-old mummy was found wearing shoes that look suspiciously like a fresh pair of Adidas. These are time travelers caught on camera who can't be explained. So in 2016, a team of archaeologists in Mongolia made a strange discovery. It was a 1500-year-old mummy buried in the Altai Mountains. The body was impressively well preserved, but what really set off the internet were the shoes. People swore they looked exactly like a pair of modern Adidas sneakers. Observe the black stripes, the overall sporty design. Photos of the find started popping up online, and of course, the time travel talk began. Were they serious? For the most part, no. Were a few people serious though? Yeah, probably. Why would someone from over 1,000 years ago be wearing something that looked like it came straight from a Foot Locker? People said. What the hell is Foot Locker? Said the Zoomers. Is that like jail for people's feet? Or MMA move? I'm not crazy, right? Like, there's not as many Foot Lockers as there used to be. Anyway, even if it wasn't Adidas, the style was bizarrely modern. Well, that's when the experts stepped in, and by that I do not mean Foot Locker employees, I mean archaeologists and historians who addressed the issue at hand, or should I say issue at foot. And they said, no, these are not Adidas. Stripes were apparently part of traditional Mongolian stitching, and the shape of the shoe was just, I don't know, a coincidence, I guess. According to researchers, it wasn't meant to look like a sneaker, it just aged in a way that made it look familiar to us now. This is what Mike Tyson used to look like before his face tattoo. This is footage from his 1995 boxing match with Peter McNeely, but when you slow it down and zoom in on a guy sitting ringside, something looks kinda out of place. Someone looks like they're holding up something that looks exactly like a smartphone, filming vertically, which is weird because it's 1995. Phones like that just didn't exist yet. The first smartphones were still years away, and the first phones with video cameras were even further off. But this guy is clearly holding something slim and rectangular. You can even see a lens glint in the light, like it's catching the action. So what was it? Well, some say it was just a camcorder, but camcorders in the mid-90s were clunky, didn't hold them like a phone. Others say maybe it was a prototype. I don't know. I think the most probable answer, though, is that someone who was so distraught over his fight with Jake Paul, or whatever you want to call that, I don't even know if it was a fight, but in their desperation, they were somehow able to craft a working time machine, using it to, of course, travel back to the mid-90s to see Mike Tyson right after he got out of prison. It's an odd time to choose, not quite his prime, but he was still winning fights. Regardless, though, if you're gonna go back in time, you're not going to leave your cell phone behind, right? So this one comes from a 1938 video. It's quick, but take a look at the woman who has her hand to her ear. notice something? It really looks like she's talking on a cell phone, doesn't it? Now, obviously, that makes zero sense. Cell phones weren't a thing for another 60 years, so of course people started tossing around their theories. Aside from people debunking it though, there are really only two theories people have: that this chick's either a time traveler or this is a case of some sort of glitch in reality. Like whatever computer overlord is controlling our reality accidentally added a cell phone to a video supposedly shot long before they were invented. Makes sense to me, but the official explanation is more boring. Interesting in its own way though. So a woman came forward years later claiming that it was her great aunt in the footage. According to her, a factory she was working at had an experimental communications division and the workers were testing out wireless radios. That's supposedly what this woman was holding, a two-way radio prototype. Kinda cool. But if that technology was available in 1938, why did it take another half century to get mobile phones into people's hands? I don't know, I just make videos about sea monsters and ghosts. The hell do I know, really? Cell phones are all over this list. Seems like this is the only way to tell if someone's traveled back in time and showed up on camera. So this one comes from a behind the scenes video that was included as a bonus feature for Charlie Chaplin's 1928 movie, The Circus. Shows people arriving for the film's premiere. It's street footage outside the theater in Los Angeles. But if you look closely, there's a woman walking by in the background doing something very weird for 1928. She's holding something up to her ear and she's talking into it, like she's on a cellular telephone. Filmmaker George Clark posted the clip online back in 2010, and he called it Chaplin's Time Traveler. The mainstream explanation is that she's using an early hearing aid. Apparently those did exist in the late 20s, and some of them had to be held up to the ear like that. News to me. Back in 2006, a Swedish guy named Hakan Norgdvist came forward with a very strange story. He said he was fixing a leak under his sink when suddenly the sink moved away on its own. Before he knew it, a blinding white light had surrounded him, and the next thing he knew, he was outside, staring at an older version of himself. Instead of freaking out, the two Hakans had a friendly chat, and Hakan even recorded the conversation on his phone. One of the big standouts of the video was their matching tattoos. Now, the footage of the older Hakan's face was blurry, and the tattoos looked way too fresh to belong to someone supposedly decades older. On top of that, there was no explanation for how he got back to his own time. But eventually, it came out the whole thing was actually a publicity stunt. Hakan's story was part of a marketing campaign for the Swedish insurance company AMF, promoting their pension plans using the theme of time travel. In 2017, a mysterious man known only as Noah showed up online claiming he was a time traveler from 2030. What stood out to many people was that he'd apparently passed a lie detector test. Noah said he'd traveled multiple times in the past but was stuck in the present. Noah gave a detailed, if bizarre, description of how he time traveled. He'd step into a giant dome with electronic devices all over his body, which supposedly pushed him through time while feeling like he was being electrocuted. He also took anti-aging pills to stay the same age while hopping around, claiming he was actually 50 but looks 25 thanks to these pills. And of course, Noah also dropped a long list of predictions for the future. He said humans would reach Mars in 2028, time travel would be discovered, Bitcoin would grow in popularity, electric cars would match petrol ones in speed, and multiple forms of cancer would be cured. He claimed contact with aliens, said that Instagram would die out, and that Martin Luther King Jr.'s granddaughter would become US president. Noah eventually admitted it was all fake. Noah, whose face had always been blurred out, finally showed his face and said his real name was Jason. He said he was being bullied at school, was struggling with his identity, and didn't have any friends. Became obsessed with YouTube and started emailing Apex TV pretending to be a time traveler. One of his videos got posted, and then overnight he became internet famous. Jason admitted it quickly turned into an addiction for him. Even the lie detector test he passed was just a mix of him believing his own story, being medicated to stay calm, and that the test itself was kind of low quality. Just goes to show how, lie detector tests, not always the most reliable. Jason ended his video by admitting he's not a great actor, but people still believed him, urging viewers to keep an open mind. Back in 2017, Wyoming cops had a pretty unusual call. A man named Bryant was wandering the streets completely intoxicated, insisting he was a time traveler from 2048. He said he'd traveled back to warn everyone about an alien invasion set to hit in 2018. He then demanded to speak directly with the, quote, president of the town to personally deliver his warning. I can't fathom why, but the cops did not take him seriously. Instead, preparing for this alien apocalypse, Bryant was arrested and slapped with a public intoxication charge. Back in 1932, two German reporters, J. Bernard Hutton and Joachim Brandt, were visiting the Hamburg-Altona shipyards. Everything seemed normal until suddenly bombs started raining down around them. They rushed into a vehicle and managed to escape terrified. As chaotic as the situation was, though, they did manage to snap some photos. But when the film was developed, the images were just blank. They told their editor about what had happened, but he just brushed them off. After all, they had no proof. In 1943, though, Hutton was flipping through a newspaper and his jaw hit the floor. The Royal Air Force had carried out an air raid on that same shipyard from 11 years before, and the destruction matched exactly what he and Brandt described all those years earlier. Back in 1901, two British academics, Charlotte Ann Moberly and Eleanor Jourdain, were visiting Versailles for some sightseeing, but things got weird. They claimed that while wandering the palace grounds, they suddenly found themselves somewhere entirely different, like they'd slipped back in time to the late 18th century. They said they saw people, including members of Louis XVI's court and Marie Antoinette herself. They also said they walked through gardens that didn't match the maps they had, and that there were people in period clothing going about their daily routines. They were so convinced of what they'd seen that they later wrote a book about it called An Adventure, using pseudonyms to avoid being publicly humiliated for how strange it all sounded. And this is one of the earliest recorded stories of what people now call a time slip, where reality seems to fold back on itself. A man turns $800 into $350 million in just 2 weeks, claims he's a time traveler from 200 years in the future, then vanishes without a trace. Another appears online saying he's a soldier from 2036 on a mission for an IBM computer, dropping eerily specific details no one was supposed to know. And a guy swears he was part of a secret government time travel project, teleported through hidden tunnels and sent as far as the year 6037. These are forgotten people who claimed they were from the future. In 2003, the FBI arrested a 44-year-old man named Andrew Carlson after the Securities and Exchange Commission flagged him for insider trading. Somehow he turned $800 into $350 million in just 2 weeks. Every single trade he made was just flawless. Obviously, investigators said there was just no way it was luck. In the interrogation room, Carlson claimed he was a time traveler from 200 years in the future, told agents his secret was just knowing how events were going to play out. According to one report, an SEC official said, with an initial investment of only $800, 2 weeks' time, he had a portfolio valued at over $350 million. Every trade he made capitalized on unexpected business developments, which simply can't be pure luck. He's going to sit in a jail cell on Rikers Island until he agrees to give up his sources. But that didn't happen. See, a mysterious man posted Carlson's bail, and before his court hearing, he vanished. Records later show that Andrew Carlson never officially existed. Back in the late 90s and early 2000s, a mysterious figure started showing up online under the names Time_0 and later John Titor. He claimed that he was a US soldier from the year 2036, sent back in time on a mission. He went deep into details about how his time machine supposedly worked, describing it as being powered by dual micro-singularities and installed in the back of a car. One of his big claims was that he'd traveled to 1975 to grab an IBM 5100 computer, which he said was needed in his time to fix major programming issues. One interesting detail here, though, is that he mentions secret functions of that machine that weren't widely known to the public, which got people wondering, maybe this guy had insider knowledge. Titor said he stopped over in the year 2000 for personal reasons, visiting family and trying to warn people about things like mad cow disease and an upcoming US Civil War. He predicted that unrest would start around 2005 and spiral into a full-blown conflict by 2008, eventually leading into a global nuclear war in 2015. Now, obviously, none of that happened, but at the time his posts had entire internet forums hooked. These were still the earlier days of the internet, so stuff like this just wasn't nearly as common as it is now. Al Bielek wasn't anyone most people had ever heard of until he started telling stories about time travel and secret government projects. He claimed his first real memory was from when he was just 9 months old at a Christmas party. He said he could actually understand conversations happening around him. Growing up, he was called a walking encyclopedia, and later got pulled into military electronics work, and that's where colleagues supposedly let him in on classified projects involving aliens, psychic experiments, and time travel. Bielek said that by the late 50s, he was recruited into something called the Montauk Project, an underground program in Long Island that dealt with time travel and mind control. He described commuting from California to Montauk using hidden tunnels, and later being teleported directly into the base once their so-called time tunnel was perfected. In the 70s, Bielek ran the psychic operations at Montauk, including the Montauk Chair, a device used to amplify psychic powers and carry out mind control experiments. By the 80s, he said he was fully involved in time travel missions, trips to Mars, back in time to 100,000 BCE and into the future, all the way to the year 6037. In 2018, a man named William Taylor claimed he'd traveled all the way to the year 8973 as part of a secret British intelligence project. He even reportedly passed a lie detector test, which of course doesn't prove anything, but it is rare for people making time travel claims like this. According to Taylor, the future is almost unimaginable. Humans as we know them no longer exist. We've been replaced by human-robot hybrids who live without crime, disease, or death. These beings experience what he described as eternal life and have built a peaceful, advanced society. Taylor also said time travel isn't new. It's been used by governments since 1981. Developed from technology reverse engineered from alien spacecraft. If nothing else, it makes for an interesting setting for a sci-fi movie. Here's a famous one. If you didn't know any better, wouldn't you say this is an astronaut? I mean, it couldn't be though. This is at the new Cathedral of Salamanca in Spain, which was built between the 16th and 18th centuries. Renaissance and Gothic architecture. The carving is on a door called the Porta de Ramos, where you have all the usual stuff you'd expect to see in a place like this. Gargoyles, historical figures, but then there's this spaceman looking dude. It's so uncanny that some view this as an undeniable proof. Time travel or some ancient knowledge of spaceflight passed down by who knows who or what. And how else could a 17th century sculptor know to depict a man in a modern spacesuit? Is there a logical explanation for this? Is this some knight who just happens to look like an astronaut? Well, no, it really is meant to be a man floating in space. See, I'm kind of cheating with this one. See, the carvings on that specific door got heavily damaged over time and needed to be restored. During the major restoration in 1992, the chief restorer, Miguel Romero, followed an old tradition that allows stonemasons to leave their personal signature on the work that they do. So he had the astronaut figure carved into the stone. So it's not actually from the 1600s, but it's still really cool that it's there amongst all the biblical beasts. This photo was taken on a street in Reykjavik, Iceland in 1943, right in the middle of World War II during the Allied occupation. The streets are full of American soldiers, British sailors, civilians, all dressed in the typical clothing of that time. It's the kind of photo you'd see in a history textbook. But look at the image long enough, and there's one guy who stands out. He's in the background, looking right into the camera with his hand raised, pressing something tight against the side of his ear. Yes, it looks like he's talking on a phone, and once you notice it's pretty hard to unsee. In 1943, people didn't even have cordless phones at home. Everything was wired. Is it possible he's just scratching his ear, shielding himself from the wind? I mean, sure, but if you were to Photoshop a man talking on a cell phone into a historical scene, it's pretty much what it would look like. And then, well, Photoshop. Now I sound like I'm in the wrong time period. You type in a man talking on a cell phone, 1943, into some AI, and it would generate the image for you. This one's weird because it actually involves official documents and a real missing person's case. In 2006, a man named Sergei Ponomarenko was walking the streets of Kyiv, Ukraine. People noticed him right away. He's wearing vintage 1950s style clothing. He was also disoriented and confused. He ended up at the police station, claimed he was born in 1932. He had documents with him as well, a Soviet-era ID card dated to the 50s that looked pretty authentic to the time period. He was also carrying an antique camera, and when police developed the film inside, they found photos of the city as it would have looked in the 50s. The architecture, the cars, the clothing of people in the background, everything matched that period. One of the images was of a woman Sergei said was his fiancée. Police managed to track her down. They found that she was real, now in her 70s, and she also told police a pretty odd story, that her fiancé Sergei had vanished out of nowhere decades ago. He then showed them a photograph of who she said was Sergei, except this one was supposedly taken in the year 2050. It was an older man standing against what looked like a futuristic city skyline, but before police could dig any further into all this, Sergei Ponomarenko went missing from the observation room where he was being held. A man named John Titor showed up online in 2000, posting on random forums and message boards. He said he was a soldier from the year 2036 on a mission to go back to 1975 and grab an old IBM 5100 computer. He claimed that machine was needed to fix future computer problems that modern systems just couldn't handle. He also posted these grainy photographs of what he said was his time machine. Big, clunky setup, supposedly fit into the back of a 1960s Chevy Corvette. The pictures showed a mess of wires, panels, one main piece he called the temporal displacement unit. He also wrote these long, detailed explanations about how all of this stuff worked, throwing around physics talk and stuff about, of course, time travel. Made a bunch of predictions about the future too. Most of those predictions, like a American Civil War, that never happened, but to this day, the amount of detail in his posts and those weird photos, it makes this a pretty intriguing case, and nobody knows who John Titor really was. Photos are the only physical thing linked to him. And of course, we have what's been dubbed the time-traveling hipster. This photo was taken in November 1941 at the reopening of the South Fork Bridge in Gold Bridge, British Columbia. It's a genuine archive photo, well documented, it's authenticated, everyone is dressed exactly like you'd expect for the early 40s, suits, vests, fedoras, but then there's this one guy on the right side of the image. He stands out so much, actually jarring when you first notice him. He's wearing a modern-looking sweater with a t-shirt underneath that looks to have some kind of logo. It's like a graphic tee that you'd see today. His hair also doesn't really look like the neat, slick back styles most men were wearing back then. He's wearing what look like sunglasses. Those types of sunglasses, the style, the size, wasn't really popular until decades later. He's also carrying something in his hands. Looks like a small handheld camera, maybe. It looks completely out of place. Now, technically, all the individual parts of his outfit, the sweater style, that type of sunglasses, even compact cameras did exist in the 40s, but they weren't common, and seeing all of this stuff combined on one single person, it really does create what we now call the hipster aesthetic. Cars popping into intersections out of nowhere, people and birds vanishing, dudes walking through closed doors, and what did this kid see that made him run for his life before seemingly vanishing out of existence? These are time clips caught on camera people still can't explain. Looks like this guy built his own version of the DeLorean from Back to the Future. Now, I have absolutely no context for this video. I've only seen it posted on this one YouTube channel that usually posts sports highlights. So as for when this happened, I don't know, but it was in Miami. We'll have to censor the hell out of the audio for this clip because it is jam-packed with swearing, but I think the guy filming this security footage with his phone says it best.
Boy, what the going on in Miami, bro?
Boy, she would've got in that bitch.
No, this just disappeared.
We saw a guy disappear after climbing into a vehicle. Now we have a guy appearing from behind a vehicle. Take a look at this. So we see a van driving through a parking lot. There are no other moving vehicles and nobody walking around the lot until there suddenly is. As the van exits the frame, there's now this man standing in what was an empty area mere seconds ago. I love the way he's standing there too. He's perfectly rigid. It looks like he just got beamed down to earth from the Enterprise. You know, in Star Trek, there's always that moment where they wait for like the teleporter dust to settle and then they can start moving. Anyway, then he does just that. He starts walking, very purposefully, mind you. Off to complete whatever mission he's been sent back in time to complete. Godspeed, sir. This next video is 100% unequivocally genuine. I call this one Saved by the Time Traveler. Some would say Saved by an Angel, but for the purposes of this list, it's a time traveler. Captured on a security camera on a street corner, we see a cyclist crossing the intersection at the worst time possible. Big truck is barreling toward them. There's no time to stop. They are going to collide. It's inevitable. And the cyclist seems very distracted. He's not even nervous, doesn't even try to swerve. If you ask me, I think the cyclist is going to take the brunt of the damage here. But just as the truck is about to wipe the cyclist off the face of the planet, and by that I mean dying, there's this flash of light. Someone has swooped in to grab the cyclist. They don't knock them out of the way. They transport them to the other side of the road as the truck driver jumps out of the vehicle to make sure everything is okay. Oh, why can't this happen more often? I think of how many deaths would be prevented year after year if we just had people in the future, monitoring all the world's roads at every point in history, just swooping in to save people before being pancaked. I don't know why that's so much to ask. If you think swooping in to save distracted cyclists from being gored to death by trucks is cool, check out this kid. This kid is pretty much the coolest dude I've ever seen, ever. He's out for a walk in the park. He's taking his health seriously, getting those steps in. Very inspiring. He doesn't even have headphones in. He's raw dogging this walk. I mean, who is this man? Who goes for a walk without a podcast? Well, I know what he is. In moments, it becomes very clear. Suddenly, the boy turns his head. There's something behind him, and it can't be good, because he immediately breaks into a sprint. Well, what is he running from? Is it a rabid dog? A street gang? Well, we don't have much time to ponder that question, because no sooner than his mad dash to safety begins, it ends. The boy disappears in a sudden flash of light. This kid didn't even have to fiddle with a futuristic gadget on his wrist. He didn't have to pull out a flip phone and ask for a guy named Scotty to beam him up. He just willed himself out of that park. To where, you ask? I don't know, another time, another place, maybe just another quiet sidewalk where he could complete his little trek in peace. Take a little stroll to your local park. Maybe you'll see him there.
Time travel is such a wild concept because of the fact that it is filled to the brim with paradoxes that would certainly need answers. One of the most confounding is the bootstrap paradox. This is a very curious time travel conundrum that deals with objects or information being sent back in time and ending up as the source of their own existence. For example, picture traveling back to Shakespeare's time and handing him a copy of his own plays. If Shakespeare then publishes these plays as his own work, it creates a loop. The plays have no original author because they just came from the future. This raises quite a puzzling question about the origin of the works. Did they come from Shakespeare, or were they simply a product of time travel? It is definitely a paradox that challenges our understanding of cause and effect, showing how time travel could lead to some absolutely mind-boggling scenarios where the source of something becomes a bit of a mystery. Wormholes are fascinating theoretical tunnels that could serve as shortcuts through the fabric of space-time. Imagine a wormhole as a kind of cosmic bridge connecting two distant points in the universe, bypassing the usual longer route through space. If these wormholes really exist and we could find a way to stabilize them, they might not only help us travel across vast distances in space, but could also allow us to journey between different moments in time. In theory, a wormhole could be like having a time machine that lets you hop between eras or even visit far-off places in the blink of an eye. The Novikov self-consistency principle is an intriguing idea that addresses the potential headaches of time travel paradoxes. It suggests that if you were to travel back in time and try to change something, the events you create must fit seamlessly into the existing timeline. In other words, any actions you take in the past would be part of the history that already happened, preventing any paradoxes from arising. This principle implies that the timeline is self-correcting. If you attempt to alter something significant, it will somehow adjust to ensure that everything remains consistent with the history that has already unfolded. So instead of causing contradictions, your time travel adventures would simply align with the timeline that's already set in motion. Pretty convenient, I guess. Black holes. Oh my goodness. Probably the most terrifying aspect of outer space. Black holes are incredibly fascinating cosmic objects with such intense gravitational fields that they can actually warp the flow of time. As you get closer to a black hole, time slows down dramatically compared to places far from it. If you've seen Interstellar, you can definitely understand how heartbreaking this concept can be. Imagine you're near a black hole and then you return to a region with normal gravity. You discover that while only a short time has passed for you, a lot more time has flown by for everyone else. This effect, known as gravitational time dilation, effectively means you've traveled into the future. It is a crazy consequence of Einstein's theory of relativity and shows how extreme gravity can stretch and distort our experience of time. Speaking of the theory of relativity, what is that? Einstein's theory of relativity is a groundbreaking concept that changes how how we think about time and space. According to Einstein, time isn't a fixed constant. It can stretch and shrink depending on how fast you're moving and how strong the gravity around you is. Specifically, as you travel closer to the speed of light, time actually slows down compared to someone who's staying put. This phenomenon, known as time dilation, means that if you could travel at such high speeds, you could experience time differently from someone else who isn't moving quite as fast. In other words, while you might age just a little, everyone else would experience the passage of time much more quickly, hinting that time travel into the future, at least theoretically, might be possible.
Yes, there really are people out there who claim to have traveled to the future, and they have some pretty wild stories about what's gonna play out. Alien invasions, the death of all the world's birds, human-robot hybrids replacing regular humans completely, and even human-chimpanzee hybrids coming in 2024. Let's get into it. And we're starting off our list with a traveler who has some pretty bad news for animal lovers out there. John, a self-proclaimed time traveler, claims to have actually come from the year 4000 and traveled back in time with some interesting details about the future. Apparently, in the year 4000, technology will have advanced to such an extent that artificial intelligence dominates most of the world. He describes a world where AI merges with daily human activity, leading to a new era where biological and artificial entities coexist almost seamlessly. Seems like this is going to happen way sooner than the year 4000 though. One of the more specific claims John makes is about the way corporations will evolve in the future. He states that all companies will be owned by a single mega corporation that uses AI to manage its operations. This corporation supposedly designs, builds, and controls robots that perform nearly all types of jobs, pushing humans out of the workforce. According to John, the result is a society where human labor is no longer necessary and robots handle most tasks. John also notes that these advancements in AI and robotics lead to changes in the environment and the social structure of society. He also states that pets like cats and dogs won't be a thing anymore, and that all birds were destroyed in order to prevent them from colliding with flying cars. Aren't there a lot more things we could collide with, like driving normal cars, than like up in the sky? Why don't we destroy everything in our path, already? I don't know. That's an odd one. Next up, we have a man named William Taylor who has some pretty wild things to say about the future, and interesting side note, he also passed a lie detector test, apparently. Now, I know lie detector tests aren't always foolproof, but not many people who claim to have traveled to the future have gone through any kind of test like that. So if that is true about the test, I don't know, that's kind of interesting. In 2018, a man named William Taylor claimed to have been part of a British intelligence project in which he traveled all the way to the year 8973. And he said that things were, or will be, actually pretty good in the distant future, so good in fact that he didn't even want to leave and come back to this time. Now, the only thing is that humans won't exist anymore, not the way we do currently anyway. Instead, a species of human-robot hybrids will populate the Earth, but no disease or crime will plague it, and these beings experience eternal life. Taylor also revealed some other intriguing information, like how time travel has actually been used by world governments since 1981. The technology was apparently reverse engineered from alien spacecrafts. A TikTok channel called Real TikTok Time Traveler started posting some pretty outlandish videos in 2022, mainly because this anonymous user claimed to be a time traveler. Is a channel the correct term when it comes to TikTok, by the way? Page? Like, do you say just like user? I'm very out of touch. I don't know where I am. Help me. But they've posted tons of videos making all kinds of claims about what the future holds. Most of it pretty dark, because that's what people just love gobbling up. They claim to be from the year 2236 and mostly post about events that will be playing out over the next 10 years. Some of their standouts include, in 2025, scientists discovering signs of life on 2 different planets that are proven to be more advanced than humans, and a meteor coming down to Earth in 2034 that will wipe out half of America. So look forward to that. Eno Alaric goes by the handle Radiant Time Traveler on TikTok and has shared some pretty grave warnings about the future. He claims to be from the year 2671, and in his latest video, he lets the fine people of the internet know about some of the notable stuff that's going to go down in the remainder of 2024. Keep May 15th marked down in your calendar because an alien race is going to show up on Earth and transport 10,000 people to another planet. But aliens coming to Earth isn't going to catch our attention for long though, because May 27th marks the beginning of the next American Civil War, which will then lead to the outbreak of World War III. But don't be too worried about your hands or feet being blown off in the war, because less than a month after the fighting kicks off, a new fruit will be discovered that helps regrow lost limbs. Also in June, the very first human-chimp hybrid will be created, and June 19th also sees a new type of storm form called a mind storm, which causes people to lose their minds and go on violent rampages. As if World War III isn't enough already. Now we have a 28 days later situation on our hands. But the best part of it all, summer, it's really gonna end with a bang. When real-life dragons are discovered in the Rocky Mountains. They fly, they breathe fire, and they even speak English. Yes, specifically English. Sorry to everyone else in the world. You'll just have to watch these dragons fly around while we chat with them. Next on the list we have Darkness Time Traveler. Now, our boy Darkness has a pretty ominous bio on his TikTok channel / page / whatever you call it, reading, "Darkness is coming. The Shadow Network is almost here," from the year 2858. The Shadow Network? Jankies. I'm guessing that's not just a TV station that shows clips of shadows 24/7. In Darkness's latest video, they claim that the solar eclipse that just went down last week was actually a smokescreen for a bunch of alien beings to fly down to Earth on meteors, obscured from our view because of the eclipse. Because apparently we wouldn't be able to see meteors flying down the Earth because it's a little bit darker out. These alien beings are known by many other alien species though as the Planet Enders, or Endids. They spell it two different ways in the video. Gonna guess they wrote the text in haste though to make sure we all got this information in time. People from 2858 can make spelling mistakes too. Anyway, the Planet Endids have invaded a plethora of planets across the galaxy, and aside from their warmongering, violent ways, they've also brought a disease with them to Earth, the same disease that wiped out the alien beings who apparently once lived on Mars. So these invaders have been among us for about a week now at the time of this recording, awaiting the perfect time to strike. Because you guys are kind of watching this in the future, at least compared to me, why don't you let me know down in the comments what's going on. Did a man somehow teleport onto this road in Russia? Take a look at this. It's always Russia, isn't it? I don't know why so much bizarre footage comes out of there, but this is a very strange video. I just don't understand where this guy appeared from and how he didn't get pancaked by that truck. Makes no sense. Slowing the video down though, I don't know, maybe it looks like he was already walking on the road and the truck was just blocking our view of him, and then it does this insane swerve to avoid hitting him, but even still, this is crazy. I mean, it really does look like he just spawns out of nowhere like a video game. And whatever the explanation, he was definitely an inch from death. This one comes from a photo taken in... I'm sorry, editor. Just gonna have to insert the name in text here. This place is in Iceland. It's 1943. Nothing out of the ordinary here, right? Just a bunch of people standing around the street dressed in typical 1940s attire, but let's play some Where is Waldo? Can you spot a dude talking on a cell phone? See the guy leaning against the building? Interesting indeed. He's dressed more casually than everyone else, almost modern. I mean, he's wearing a trench coat, but modern. He's holding something up to his ear though, like he's on a phone call. Now, obviously flip phones weren't a thing in 1943, so what's this lad here doing? Was he just checking or adjusting a pipe by listening to it? Was he scratching his face with something? Absolutely not. Don't be ridiculous. This fool was talking on a cell phone. He didn't think yours truly would notice, but I did. I did. Sue me. Honestly though, it really does look like someone using a cell phone. Like a guy who stepped out to take a call, you know, during a street fair or something. There's a short film from the UK that was shot in the early 1940s. It shows a bunch of people relaxing on a beach. Got kids building sandcastles, there's people reading newspapers. But right in the middle of the frame, this one guy walks through holding something. And yes, sorry for the lack of variety here, but it really looks like this man has a cell phone or some other modern piece of technology. But instead of talking on it, looks like he's texting. At least that's what a bunch of people online have said. He just looks weirdly modern and out of place. The suit probably has something to do with it. I don't think I've ever seen someone in a suit and tie at the beach. Maybe Doctor Who? But what does Doctor Who do? I don't know, you tell me. I'm Star Trek all the way, but I think he has time traveled. In 2008, a team of archaeologists in China opened what was supposed to be a completely sealed tomb, untouched for about 400 years. As they carefully went through the site, they found something on the floor, a small metal object that looked like a watch. Wasn't an ancient sundial or a decorative bracelet or something. This was an actual modern-looking watch. The time was stuck at 10:06, and the back of it was engraved with the word Swiss. Now, a find like this makes no sense. Wristwatches weren't invented until long after the tomb was sealed, and while Switzerland is definitely known for watches today, the idea that a Swiss-branded watch somehow ended up in a centuries-old Chinese tomb was very odd, to say the least. So, yes, some believe this was a case of someone slipping into the past and leaving behind their watch before returning to their own time. So this is Greta Thunberg, and this is not Greta Thunberg. Apparently. That's because this photo was taken in 1898 during the Klondike Gold Rush. The similarity is uncanny though. She even has the same braid, same serious expression. Suffice to say, this photo blew up online. Some took it as a joke, calling her a time traveler sent back to warn us. But there are totally people out there who fully believe Greta's part of a secret government time travel program. What do you all think? And of course, we gotta talk about this one. This photo was taken in 1941 at the reopening of the South Fork Bridge in British Columbia. It's your typical black and white historical image. Everyone's standing around in old-fashioned coats and hats and suits, except for one guy. One dude looks like he walked straight out of a college campus in the 2000s. He's wearing what looks like a modern sweater with a graphic tee underneath and sunglasses. He's also holding a small camera that seems pretty compact for the time. He sticks out so badly, it's almost like someone photoshopped him in. But that's not the case here. Forums and YouTube videos started popping up, calling him the time-traveling hipster. But of course, there's always someone ready to kill the vibe. Debunkers pointed out that the sunglasses were actually around in the 20s and 30s. The printed t-shirt is likely just a sweater with a Stitch logo, yada yada. And while the camera does look modern, compact cameras apparently did exist then. They just weren't super common. An English school teacher finds a computer that writes messages from the 1500s claiming contact with a man from 2109. A British Royal Air Force officer flies over an abandoned airfield in 1935 and sees it fully operational decades before it should exist. And a man warns of a future collapse in what he calls secret time authorities, claiming he's already lived centuries ahead of us. These are more people who claimed they were from the future. I cannot believe I've been doing videos on this channel as long as I have, and have not come across this first story until today. This is the tale of the Dawdleston Messages. In 1984, in a small English village called Dawston, a teacher named Ken Webster was fixing up a dusty old cottage with his girlfriend Debbie and their long-term guest Nicola. While working, they noticed something odd. There were 6-toed footprints. None of these people had 6 toes, in case that needed clarifying. And then more and more weird stuff kept happening at the cottage. They'd find icy cold spots. They'd see strange shadows everywhere. Your typical paranormal type activity. Ken also had a BBC microcomputer, an early 80s home computer that wasn't even connected to the internet or any network. But one day, a message popped up on the screen. It was a poem, creepy and cryptic, talking about nightmares and decaying flowers. Over time, Ken realized they were supposedly coming from someone who lived in the same cottage, but in the 1500s. LW, he said his name was. And then he revealed his true name to be Thomas Harden, claiming he was being accused of witchcraft in his time and had lost his land. Thomas was just as confused as Ken was. He said he'd been communicating through a strange box of lights that appeared in his home, which he believed was some kind of magic. That box was likely referring to Ken's computer, meaning that both men were somehow using the same object to send messages across centuries. And then things got even stranger. Another mysterious person started sending messages too, supposedly from the year 2109. This future group claimed they were monitoring both Ken and Thomas as part of an experiment to study how time interacts. Back in 1935, a British Royal Air Force officer named Victor Goddard was flying a biplane over an old abandoned airfield near Edinburgh. The place was basically falling apart. Overgrown, crumbling buildings, there were no planes, no people. A few days later, he flew the same route again. As he got close to the airfield, a sudden storm kicked up. Just as quickly as it started though, the sky cleared. And what he saw made zero sense. The airfield wasn't abandoned anymore. Buildings had been fixed up, freshly painted as well. Planes were sitting on the tarmac, painted bright yellow, which wasn't even a color the Air Force was using yet. Mechanics were in blue overalls, moving around, working on the planes. Goddard was shaken, but he reported what he saw. Most people thought he'd misremembered or gotten confused, but then World War II rolled around. And wouldn't you know it, that same airfield was rebuilt exactly as he'd seen it years before. There were yellow planes, blue overalled mechanics, everything lined up perfectly. Goddard wasn't some conspiracy theorist either. He rose to Air Marshal, one of the top brass in the Royal Air Force, and he stuck to his story till the day he died. Dziga Vertov, or just Vertov, claims he's one of the first time travelers ever caught on camera. Back in 2014, he gave a YouTube interview where he shared all this stuff about the future. He said there's a kind of authority that controls both time travelers and regular people, making sure nobody messes with history. According to him, they can erase memories or trap someone in what he calls a perpetual cell, while a clone takes their place. So Vertov said he took a huge risk just doing this interview, warning that future generations are facing a major collapse. Society will fall apart, money will vanish, but that eventually humans will rebuild. The interviewer was, understandably, pretty skeptical, especially since Vertov refused to show any proof. He didn't take the doubt well and walked off the set, possibly even walked off this plane of time, never to return. Paul Amadeus Dianak was a Swiss teacher who in 1921 fell into a coma thanks to some serious health issues. When he woke up, he claimed to have lived an entire year, but not in his own time. Dianak said he had woken up in the year 3906, inhabiting the life of a man named Andreas Nora. At first, he couldn't make sense of what he was seeing. Towering skyscrapers, flying cars. He also described using a glowing device which let him access all the world's knowledge. Sounds a lot like a smartphone. During this year, Dianak documented everything he saw. He described humanity struggling through overpopulation, environmental disasters, and wars for the first few centuries of the second millennium. He wrote about attempts to colonize Mars, which ultimately failed, and then a catastrophic nuclear war in 2309 that forced humanity to rethink its way of living. From that chaos, though, a global government rose to power, eventually leading to a golden age around the year 3400. Before he died, he handed his diaries to a former student who translated them and found extremely specific details about the language, the technology, and the structure of that society. The world building was on point. Obviously, this could have been an elaborate dream, but his notes are still considered by some to be one of the most compelling cases of possible time travel. Alright, this one's pretty silly. I never said these had to be convincing. I just said these were people who claim to be from the future, alright? In 2018, a guy named Alexander Smith popped up in a few videos on Apex TV, YouTube, claiming he was a time traveler. According to him, the CIA sent him back in 1981 on a secret mission to the year 2118. He never really explained what the mission was, but apparently when he came back, the agency was not thrilled. Smith said he had to go into hiding because the CIA has supposedly been hunting him ever since. As for evidence, he just brought along a blurry photo of a futuristic city, which he claims he took in 2118. He says it's blurry because of the effects of time travel, which kind of sounds like a writer doing a shoddy patch job in a plot hole. Smith also said he'd been holding on to it since the 80s because the world just wasn't ready to see it yet. But by 2018, he apparently decided it was finally time. The guy also talks in this constantly wavering Americanish accent. It's kind of strange. I guess it's meant to be a future voice, kind of an amalgamation of different accents, maybe. David Huggins' story might be one of the strangest I've ever come across, and I love it, honestly. He says he first encountered aliens when he was 8. By age 17, he claims he had a frisky encounter with one, an alien named Crescent with a black wig, later fathered hybrid alien human children with her. He claims he'd had all kinds of adventures with these alien beings, including time travel, and ever since, he's been putting all these strange memories on paper in the form of paintings. There is a whole documentary about him called Love and Saucers if you want to get more into the weeds with this story. Definitely a very odd but interesting guy. In 2006, a man named Sergei Ponomarenko appeared in Kiev asking for directions to streets that no longer existed in the city. He was wearing old-fashioned clothing and carried a Soviet-era ID, along with a vintage camera full of undeveloped film. When the authorities questioned him, he insisted he'd been born in 1932 and explained that he had somehow been transported into the future all the way to 2050 and back again. Police checked his documents and found that they were dated from the 50s, listing him as 25 years old. Then they developed the film from his camera. It was mostly black and white photos from the 50s. There was also a picture of Ponomarenko with a woman he said was his fiancée, and even a strange image of what looked like a UFO hovering near a building. He claimed that as soon as he snapped that photograph, he found himself forward in time. Authorities tracked down the woman from the photo, now in her 70s. She confirmed that her fiancé had disappeared mysteriously decades earlier, and even showed a photograph allegedly taken in 2050 showing an older Ponomarenko against a futuristic Kiev skyline. Before investigators could analyze any further, though, Ponomarenko vanished without a trace. Back in 1995, a guy named Mike Markham called into Art Bell's paranormal-themed radio show Coast to Coast AM, saying he'd figured out how to travel through time using a device based on something called a Jacob's Ladder. Apparently, when he tried building a bigger version, he needed more power than he had, so he admitted to stealing several power transformers from his local utility in King City, Missouri. That theft caused a blackout, and of course, it got the attention of the cops. He was arrested and ended up with 60 days in jail, plus a suspended sentence. The next year, Markham called back, saying he was building a second time machine, this time using legal parts, and claimed it was almost ready. He told Art Bell that he'd already sent about 200 small items and even some animals through the device, and that next, he was planning to travel himself. Well, then in 1997, Markham disappeared. For nearly 2 decades, people figured he'd never be heard from again. Either he was a hoaxer, he died, or he really had traveled to some other time. Project Pegasus is one of those weird, little-known stories about secret government experiments from the 60s and 70s. The idea is that DARPA, the Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency, was secretly working on time travel and teleportation. A lawyer named Andrew Basiago from Washington claims he was part of it when he was a kid. According to him, the government had actually built a working time machine based on Nikola Tesla's research, something he said was called a chronovisor. Basiago says the device could send people back and forth in time and even to alternate realities. He claims he went on several missions, one where he witnessed the Gettysburg Address firsthand, and that he traveled to the future to collect information for the government. Of course, there's no official proof that Project Pegasus ever existed, and most people think it's just a wild hoax, but I mean, I'd sure love him to make a movie of this, especially because he said some pretty famous people were also involved in this project, including a young Barack Obama. Here are a couple strange ones. This whole thing hasn't been strange already, but in 2017, a man from Greece came forward saying that after 6 years in the Greek military, he was invited in 2013 to join a top-secret government project. According to him, he traveled all the way to the year 3207, and from his perspective, the trip only took about 2 days. Not long after, another anonymous Greek man shared a similar tale. He said that back in 2008, while still a student, a professor approached him with the chance to join a time travel experiment. He accepted and claimed he was sent to the year 10,000. The goal, he said, was to gather information about a future war between humans and artificial intelligence, a war that, if other time travelers are to be believed, humanity probably ain't gonna win. Ever heard of Elvis? Not Presley, Elvis Thompson. No? Well, there's a good reason why this guy's been forgotten, even after his 5 minutes of internet fame. He claims to be from the future, and put a video out on January 1st listing a whole bunch of things that were supposed to happen over the course of the year, none of which have happened. His claims stood out, though, to some people, because instead of just like vague predictions with loose time frames, he gave very specific details and dates. The first one he shared was for April 6th, where he said Oklahoma would be hit by a tornado so huge it would stretch 24 kilometers across, with winds over 100 kilometers per hour, way beyond anything scientists have ever documented. On September 1st, he claimed aliens would arrive. According to him, one of them, named Champion, would take 12,000 people away to another planet for protection. Later that same month, on September 19th, he warned of a massive storm hitting the East Coast. His last prediction was for November 3rd, when he said a sea creature 6 times larger than a blue whale would be discovered in the Pacific. We haven't hit November yet, so maybe there's a chance this one will happen, but I mean, also, no. Not based on his track record anyway. A woman walks out of a 1928 movie premiere holding what looks like a cell phone to her ear. A photo from 1898 shows a gold miner who looks identical to Greta Thunberg, and an ancient Greek sculpture from over 2,000 years ago seems to show a woman being handed a laptop. These are real time travel photos historians can't explain. A filmmaker was going through bonus material on a DVD of Charlie Chaplin's 1928 film The Circus. They noticed something weird in an old newsreel from the premiere. The clip seems pretty ordinary. It's just people walking around outside the theater entrance in Los Angeles, but then this woman walks into frame, passes by a car on the street, and she's holding a thin black rectangular object right up to her ear. She seems to be talking into it, using the exact same posture we all use when we're on our phones. But again, this is 1928. Mobile phones, of course, were not around, and two-way radios were these massive, bulky things that you couldn't exactly carry around casually like this. Now, historians say it's probably an early portable hearing aid, maybe an acousticon, which was being developed around this time, but those things also had a lot of long wires running out of them, which doesn't really look to be the case here, so I don't know. In 2019, someone dug up this photo from the University of Washington archives. Something about the image caught their eye. Can you tell what it is? One of these kids is a dead ringer for Greta Thunberg, but this photo is from 1898. It's 3 kids working at a gold mine in the Yukon Territory of Canada. It'd be pretty standard historical photo if it weren't for the Greta girl. The resemblance is so strong that people immediately started talking about time travel. Jokingly, maybe, but not for some, I imagine. I mean, is Greta Thunberg some kind of ancient soul or an agent sent from the distant future jumping through history to influence humanity? Maybe she was sent back to warn people about the environmental destruction of the gold rush and got pulled back to our time to deal with the modern climate crisis. There's this marble funerary relief at the J. Paul Getty Museum in California, carved around 100 BCE. It's called Grave Niskos of an enthroned woman with an attendant. The sculpture shows a woman sitting on a throne with a young female attendant standing in front of her. The servant is holding out this thin rectangular thing that really does look like a laptop. The proportions, the clear separation between what looks like a base and a lid, it's pretty uncanny. Also looks a lot like a pizza box, either way, not at the time. Now, the main explanation here is that this is a wax writing tablet which ancient Greeks used for taking notes and writing messages, and yeah, that's probably it, but I get the conspiracy surrounding this. I mean, the way the attendant is presenting it really looks like she's showing a report on a screen, or that she's about to grab a slice of pizza. Take a gander at this photo when Brazil won the 1962 FIFA World Cup in Chile. 1962 communication technology was still pretty limited. Landlines, letters, telegraphs, that's what people had. But in this photograph, capturing the moment right after Brazil's victory, players celebrating with the trophy, crowds going nuts with excitement. Well, down in the foreground, there's someone holding a small-ish rectangular object. It looks a bit like a mobile phone or maybe a small digital camera. Stuff like that is pure science fiction at the time. Small film cameras existed, sure, but it didn't look like this. They were big and boxy. This almost looks like someone taking a vertical photo for social media, decades before social media was a thing. Maybe it's a small radio or some kind of medical device, maybe, but am I going with time travel? Yes, I am. This painting is called The Expected One, painted in 1860 by Austrian artist Ferdinand Georg Waldmüller. It's a romantic scene. There's a young man wading off in the dirt path with a pink flower, presumably waiting for this young woman who's approaching him. She's dressed in typical clothing of the time. Everything looks period appropriate, but she's walking with her head down, eyes are fixed downward, totally focused on this small, dark, rectangular object she's holding up with both hands. I mean, you get where I'm going. It looks like she's texting. Her posture, the way she's carrying herself, it's the first thing you notice. It looks identical to someone scrolling through their phone on the street today. She's completely absorbed in whatever this object is, ignoring the nature around her, ignoring the man who's crouching there waiting for her with a flower. One explanation is that this is a small prayer book. It was common for women to carry while walking in that era, but it just looks more like a phone. She's looking down at it, like it looks like she's reading it, but the thing isn't open like a book would be, hence why it looks more to us like a cell phone. This happened during a live TV interview at Copenhagen Airport. Guy's being interviewed for Danish Sports Center. Who knows what he's talking about? But in the background, well, it's just our usual airport chaos. People walking by, grabbing their bags, chatting. But watch the blonde woman standing there. Do you see that? When the woman with the luggage cart walks by her, suddenly the blonde lady just disappears. 1 second she's there, the next she's gone, right in the middle of the frame. No camera cuts, no obvious editing. People online have been going nuts trying to explain it, but what do you think? Is it just a trick of angles and perspective, or did this woman enter into a wormhole or something? This clip is from 2018, and it comes from a home security camera in Henderson County, Texas. The woman who uploaded it said she was sitting on the couch watching TV with her husband, and something on the security monitor caught their attention. On the screen, a man could be seen walking through the car park area. What immediately stood out was how strange he looked. The figure appeared slightly transparent. His walk looked especially stiff, almost like a military march. But then he just fades away. Not out of view, I mean he almost evaporates into thin air. There's no obvious place where he could have gone either. He was right out in the open. The homeowner said they immediately went outside to check, but no one was there. If the man had tried to cut through the yard or leave the area on foot, the other cameras should have picked him up, or, they would have seen him further down the road. But that was not the case. So what the hell? Did this guy just walk through a closed door? This weird piece of CCTV footage from the US shows what some viewers claim is a man walking straight through the closed doors of a convenience store, while the camera's date stamps flickers between 2016 and 2019. The video is black and white, capturing the locked entrance of a corner store where a homeless man is seen sleeping nearby. At first, a couple approaches the store. They notice the closed sign and they walk away, because they're good people. They're not going to break in. Shortly after, though, all these lights start flickering from inside the store. The homeless guy looks up, like, what's going on? And then all of a sudden, this flash of light happens. The date stamp flickers, and then this guy just walks out of the store through the closed door. Some people are skeptical about this one. Not my ASS. And the uploader, UFO Mania, defended the clip too, saying the time clock does not pause during his transition. If it was an edit or a special effect, you would see irregular movement in the time clock. Usually it appears to be consistent. This one is hard to believe, but looks hard to fake. Curious. We've talked enough about people vanishing into who or when knows where, but what about animals? This piece of CCTV footage comes from Melbourne, Australia. People are going about their daily lives, nothing out of the ordinary, at least not from what we can see. But then this bird flies by. You guessed it, smarty pants. It disappears. So keep your eyes on the seagull as it soars above everyone's heads. Where's it going, you wonder? Well, not to the beach, that's for sure. Because suddenly, just like I said, it vanishes out of thin air. Is this reality glitching? Are we living in a simulation? Or is everything totally normal, aside from this bird being a time traveler? Or maybe powerful beings from the future zapped it out of existence in order to save our timeline. I mean, who knows? This bird could have set off a complete societal collapse if it went on to wherever it was going. This next video comes out of Russia. We watch a car make a left turn into an intersection when out of nowhere, another vehicle suddenly appears and cuts right across its path, almost causing a crash. 1 second the road looks clear, and the next there's a car right in front of them. I mean, what? Where the hell did that car come from? Now, is it possible that the other driver was coming in at such a high speed they weren't visible on the camera until the last second, making it look like they appeared out of thin air? No, it's not. Check this out. This is Mike Tyson back in 1995, way before the face tattoo, during his fight with Peter McNeely. But if you slow the footage down, zoom in on the ringside crowd, something really sticks out. There's a guy who looks like he's holding a smartphone, filming the fight. Now, that's super weird because it's 1995. For the younger folks watching, smartphones did not exist yet, but this guy's holding something slim, rectangular. You even catch a glint of a lens reflecting the light, like it's recording. Well, alright, maybe it's just a camcorder. Well, most mid-90s camcorders were big and bulky. You wouldn't hold one like a phone. Certainly. Others think it could have been some kind of prototype. Or, hear me out, maybe someone was so obsessed with seeing Tyson after he got out of prison, they built a time machine, traveled back in time, and bought their phone with them.